Barnes is going to win an exchange. But his knight's in a bad place. All right, so Morphy's down in exchange, but that knight could not be on a worse square. I mean, that's one of the 4 worst squares on the board for a knight. And so Morphy just simply goes about his development. He brings out a knight. Actually, it's White's move here. White goes here to guard that pawn. Morphy brings out his knight. Barnes brings out his knight, hitting the queen. So Morphy winds up with a pawn for the exchange. And he just keeps developing his pieces. Now, Morphy believed in rapid development. That was Morphy's contribution to chess. So much so that he once wrote a monograph on the King's Gambit in which he said this variation of the King's Gambit loses for White unless White is playing at queen-knight odds, in which case it wins for White. Now wait a minute. If you have a queen-knight, you lose, but if you don't have a queen-knight, you win. Well, because you don't have the queen-knight, your queen-rook develops 1 tempo faster, and now you have a winning position. So Morphy was all about developing pieces. So, and you can see here, he's just going about his development. And at this point, the knight's threatening to come in here, so Barnes goes like that. Morphy brings the knight in, threatening this. And it looks as if White solved all of his problems. You know, the knight is guarding this square. And now, the tactical, magic starts. Morphy starts sacrificing pieces left and right. First, he sacrifices the bishop. Now he sacrifices the knight. But some of these sacrifices can't be accepted because if Barnes accepts the knight, he gets mated. See, that was the idea of sacking the bishop here, is to take the bishop away from guarding that square. It was a nice deflection maneuver. So at this point, Barnes the only move he can play is he has to give up his queen for the knight. But he has a lot of material for it. He castles. Morphy threatens mate by taking this knight. The bishop comes back. Morphy plays a nice visions move to chase the king into a mating net. And now watch how he just gives away material here. The knight is moving for like the 6th time, I think it is already. It moves again. Morphy just lets him win the bishop. Now he sacrifices his queen. He can't take the queen because if rook takes queen, rook comes down and forces checkmate. But Barnes tries to block the rook by checking with the knight, and Morphy just grabs the knight and Barnes resigns. So the rook is hanging, the queen is hanging, he sacrificed all of the other pieces except for the king knight. And how does he do this magic? 9 tempos. Barnes moved his king knight 9 times, and it's 24 moves. And if you think that was only one game, in 1975, when Jonathan Mestel at the World Junior Championship beat Paul van der Steur and 2 future grandmasters were playing, Jonathan Mestel was black. He won in 33 moves, and van der Steur moved his king knight 8 times. You know, so this is a common theme. Remember in my 60 memorable games where Fischer quotes from Tarrasch in the 2 Knights Defense, where he says that Tarrasch thought that the move knight to g5 was a duffer's move because you're moving the same piece twice. Well, what would Tarrasch have said about moving the king knight 9 times? I mean, that's unbelievable. You just cannot move the same piece that many times and keep grabbing material. So that's one example of how you have to play the fiddle or a counter game. That you can't count material. You're playing. Your pieces are very active. They're better coordinated, and you just have to proactively counterattack. And your counterattack will be very strong, not just in chess terms, but also psychologically, because I played it over 800 times, and something happens around move 15. Well, look at my opponent, and he was smiling for 15 moves. Now all of a sudden, he's looking kind of worried because, for 15 moves or so, it looks as though White's just going to win by force right out of the opening. And suddenly he realizes, it's only a nearly decisive attack, not a decisive attack. And now psychologically, your opponent falls apart. I mean, I could tell you some anecdotes that are almost unbelievable. I mean, I was playing a FIDE 2280 at Jose Cucci's New York Open. First I sacrificed one exchange as black with the Philidor. Then I sacrificed another exchange. I'm down 2 exchanges. And suddenly, my opponent is smiling because, hey, I'm winning this game free and easy, he suddenly realizes I'm about to force perpetual check with my queen. The only way he can stop it is to swap off queens, but when he does it, my pawn on e3 cannot be stopped from promoting. He'll have to give up a rook for it. So he sits there for 5 minutes, he sits there for 10 minutes, he sits there for 15 minutes, and I'm saying to myself, what is he even thinking about? He has to allow the perpetual, otherwise he loses immediately. And it suddenly dawned on me, you know, he's about to commit suicide. He's like a guy on the window ledge getting ready to jump, but it takes him about 15 minutes to get enough courage to make that leap. And he played one move and allowed the queens to be swapped and resigned instantaneously. And it was like, you know, I just could not understand why he would do that. For some reason, psychologically, you will win more than your fair share of games. The full counter game is only good for a draw, but there's probably 24 games that I've won over the years where my opponent just committed Harry-Carry over the board, you know, where he just gave up, you know. I had a 1600 here, could have forced a triple repetition. He didn't do it, and he went on to lose. So after the game I said, have you ever beaten a chess master? No. Have you ever drawn a chess master? No. He said, did you see that you could have forced a triple repetition and drawn a chess master? And the kid looked at me like, are you crazy? You think I'm going to let you escape with a draw playing that opening? This guy's a 1600 playing an 1700. I had an 1800 do the same thing. There's something about this opening which, in a way, the lack of respect that your opponent has for it is better for you. You're going to win a whole bunch of games that, objectively speaking, should only be draws. But your opponent, I don't know if it's peer pressure. I've coined an expression I call it filler or counter game of rage, where I've noticed that it's just like road rage. You're driving on a highway, you have to cut some guy off to get to your exit. You're not really trying to cut him off. You just want to go home and get to your exit. He thinks you purposely cut him off, and he starts honking his horn and shaking his fist and flashing his headlights and making obscene gestures after that. They call that road rage. That's road rage. Well, filler or counter gambit rage is when you beat a guy with a filler or counter gambit, and he may never talk to you again for the rest of his life. You know, he'll hate you because I remember there's one master I beat him twice in the filler or counter gambit, and I showed up at the U.S. Amateur Team event in Parsippany, and in front of like 1,000 people in the ballroom, he started screaming at me like a crazy man. I don't even know what he was yelling about. I just walked out of the room and I saw somebody got in the hallway here. It's filler or counter gambit rage. He's just, I guess for his friends must have been teasing him and giving him the business. So you lost twice to that lousy opening, you know, and you're a chess master. They must have been razzing him, and it finally drove him out of his mind, and he had to start screaming at me. So, for some reason, this opening, there's something irrational about it. If I told you some of the incidents that happened to me with this opening, you'd probably think I'm making it up. I mean, I got threatened with a lawsuit over this opening. The editor of Atlantic Chess News receives an email like 10 years ago. I won the Chess Journalist of America Award for the best opening analysis in 1996 for my analysis of filler or counter game. I beat out a grandmaster, finished in second place. It was almost unheard of. And some irate reader says, I'm going to sue you and West are going to run up big legal fees because West left out Steinis' analysis in his articles. So the editor calls me up to say, Jim, I'm resigning as editor because my wife saw the email before I got home, and when I got home she was crying at the front door. So I stopped writing for Atlantic Chess News and started writing for Empire Chess for 3 years until the heat died down. But I almost wish that it had gone to court. I would just love to have been in the courtroom when the opposing attorney said, Your Honor, the nature of my client's grievance is that Jim West, the reason we're suing him for triple damages, he left out Wilhelm Steinis' analysis on the filler or counter gambit. I mean, it's insane. I had a player join the ICC using the name Master Jim West, and he started playing the filler or counter gambit and losing with it. So I always show up at tournaments and people be laughing at me saying, Jim, oh, you lost with your opening last night. You play like a fish. You don't know how to play your opening. He said, I'm not on the ICC. Well, you're Master Jim West. There's no other chess master named Jim West. Some guy steals my identity, and now the ICC won't tell me his name because of the privacy policy. The guy's using my name on the ICC and making me look like a fool, and they're shielding me because, well, I found that anyway. Somebody pulled a few strings and they told me the guy's identity. I put a stop to it. I had a FIDE master follow me around for 8 weeks after my book came out, and he said to me in the Matt Chess Club one day, he goes, West, I'm going to follow you around for the rest of your life.